Greetings, boys and girls, and welcome back to Mr. Given's math class. Happy Tuesday. Today we are learning how to add and subtract integers using the scoreboard method. The scoreboard method. The scoreboard method is just another tool, another strategy to use when we are adding and subtracting integers. In our previous video, I showed you how to go over adding and subtracting integers using models and number lines. All right. So check out my previous video on this particular method if you prefer this one. This is more of an introductory strategy to use. And then the scoreboard is another strategy that we can use. So here we go. Let's get right into our topic for today. And our steps to use this method is going to be very similar to what we did with the previous method of the number line and the counters. So the first thing we want to do here is, we have it listed here, is we want to circle our terms. We want to circle our terms. So remember, terms are just the numbers that are in the expression that we are doing the integers with. Whatever integers we're adding or subtracting, these are called terms. And before we perform any type of operation, any type of movement, we want to circle our terms. And for the purposes of consistency, I am going to use the same two colors that I used yesterday: red for negatives, yellow for positives. All right. So I'm going to start off with circling my negatives. All right. So my negatives, I have a -4 here. And then I have a +6. Remember, for the purposes of consistency, I'm just using yellow and red. It does not matter what color you use, just as long as you know which is negative and which is positive. The whole concept of the scoreboard method, it centers around a game or any type of sporting event. And the idea here is that we are going to ask ourselves two questions to help us find our answer. Who won? And by how much? Who won and by how much? And that will give us our answer. So let's just go ahead and look at the first example here. We already have it, but just to work through it, let's just look at our terms. So we have two teams here. We have the negative team, this negative sign here, and the positive team, the positive sign here. Now, just like any sporting event, whoever has the higher score, well, most sporting events, whoever has the higher score wins. So we're looking for the highest score, and that's what's going to tell us what sign we use. So let's take a look at our first example. We have a -4 in our first term and a +6 in our second term. All that we're going to do is put that on the scoreboard. So we have a -4, so that's going to go 4 points for the negative team. The negative team gets 4 points. So we record that on the negative side. Then here we have the positive team that has 6 points. So 6 points for the positive team. So who won? Well, the positive team won. Why? Because they have more points than the negative team. Their number is higher than the negative team. And so what we do here is we got to find out how much did they win by. And we can do some simple math here. We can do 6 minus 4 to find out how many points they won by. And we know that that is 2. So they won by 2 points, and that is how we get our answer. So who won? Positives. Why? Because they have more points than the negative team. How much did they win by? Well, they won by 2 points because the difference in the two scores are 2. So our answer is a +2. Whatever team won, that's technically the sign you use. But as we discussed in our previous video, all positive numbers, we don't need to put a plus in front of the number. Only with negatives do we need to put a negative sign in front of the numbers. Okay, let's look at our next example here. Again, first thing we want to do is circle our terms. These are our two terms here. So we're going to go ahead and circle our terms. The first number is a +12. We know it's positive because there is no sign in front of it. And when there's no sign in front of a number, it's automatically positive. And then our second term, there's a negative right here. So we circle that whole term. So this is a -21. a negative 21. So how many points did the positive team have in this game? Well, on this particular score, we have a 12 points for the positive team. Positive team scored 12 points. And the negative team scored 21 points. The negative team scored 21 points. So now we can ask ourselves, who won, by how much, and then determine our answer. So let's look at the scoreboard. The scoreboard shows, well, the negative team won this game because they have more points than the positive team. So who won here? Negatives. So we're just going to write negatives right here. The negative team won. How many points did they win by? Well, let's do a little math here. We have 21 minus 12. We just subtract the two scores. 21 minus the 12. We can't take 2 from 1, so we just do a little borrowing here. So this becomes 11, and we pay this back over here. So now we can do 11 minus 2. That gives us 9, and 1 minus 1 gives us 0. So how many points did they win by? They won by 9 points. So again, what team won? Negative team. Whatever team won, that's the sign that we put. How many points did they win by? They won by 9 points. So our answer here is a negative 9. Negative 9. So the negative team won by 9 points. So our answer there is negative 9. In our third example here, we have a little tricky one, but it still can be used and solved using this scoreboard. So the first thing we got to do here, though, is look at this double negative. Now, this double negative is something that we have to convert before we go to put our answers on the scoreboard, to put our points on the scoreboard. So when you think of a double negative, let's just think about subtracting a negative from a certain balance. So we're technically removing a debt here. So let's say we have a negative $20 that we owe somebody $20, but the person says, you know what, you don't have to pay me that back. So technically we just gained $20. So when you're subtracting a negative, it's technically a positive. So what we do here is we just connect these negatives and make it a plus. So I'm going to write you a little note here so that you know what to do when you have a double negative. So double negatives become positive. Double negatives become positives. And this is only if they are back to back. Double negatives become positives. So the way we do that here is we just take the two negatives and we connect them with a line and we make a plus. All right. Double negatives become positive. Why? Because it's the opposite of a negative. So it's technically a positive 20 here. Now, after you do all your double negative conversions, then you can go ahead and circle your terms. Now that I've converted my double negatives, we're going to circle our terms. So here I have a negative 8, but I also have a negative 16. So now I've circled all of my negatives. Now I need to circle all my positives. Yes, we made a positive because we had double negatives, and we just stated that double negatives become a positive. Double negatives become a positive. So I'm going to circle this right here because I have a positive 20. Now notice here we have 3 terms in this one compared to 2 terms in this one. When you're adding and subtracting integers, your terms could vary. Could be 2 terms, could be 3 terms, could be 4 terms. Does not matter. You can use the scoreboard method no matter how many terms you have. Just circle your terms to determine how many goes on what side. Now, let's go ahead and fill out our scoreboard now that we have our terms circled. On our negative team, we have a 16 and a 8. We have a 16 and a 8. So for the 16, we have 16 points and we have 8 points. 16 points and 8 points. And then for the positive team, they scored 20 points. They scored 20 points. So what we want to do here is add the total points for the negative team and the total points of the positive team. So I have a total of 24 points. The negative team had a total of 24 points. If the values are on the same side of the scoreboard, you add those values together, okay? If they're on opposite sides, you have to subtract them to find the difference. So now that I know the total points of the negative team and the total points for the positive team, let's find out who won. Well, we can clearly see that on this one, the negative team scored 24 points and the positive team scored 20 points. So who won? Well, the negative team won. So we're going to write again, negatives. The negatives won. How many points did they win by? Well, this team won by 24 points minus the 20 points that the positive team scored. So that gives us 4. So how many points did they win by? 4. Negative team won, so we put a negative sign. How much did they win by? 4 points. So answer here is -4. So these are our examples to solve the addition and subtraction of integers using the scoreboard method. I can do several of these with you, but you can pause the video to practice some of these by yourself. If you're in my classroom, you can solve all of these by yourself as well. Okay, I'm just going to do number 1 with you and number 2 with you, and I'm going to let you complete the rest of these by yourself. I'm going to do 1 and 2 with you. You can practice number 3 and number 4 by yourself. Be careful with that double negative there. And then we'll see if you mastered this skill. So number 1, let's look at number 1. We have a positive 34. So we're going to keep the same idea, circle our terms. We have a positive 34. And then we have a -21, a -21. So we're going to fill out our scoreboard. Negative team scored 21 points. So that goes over here. Positive team scored 34 points. So that goes over here. And then we can ask ourselves the same questions up top. Who won? By how much? And then get our answer. All right. So who won? Well, the positive team won. The positive team won. So I'm just going to put a plus here. All right. How many points they won by? Well, let's do a little bit of math. 34 minus the 21. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. So they won by 13 points. So our answer is a positive 13. Positive 13. Remember, our sign is always the team who won. Positive team won, so our answer is positive. If the negative team wins, then our answer is negative. Last one before I allow you to practice by yourself. Number 2. Number 2. Look at our negatives. We have negatives on both our terms. We have negatives on both our terms. We have -21 and a -8. There are no positives here. So guess what? This is a blowout because the positive team, they didn't score any points. They have 0. Notice we don't have any positive terms here. So that's 0. But our negative team, they scored 21 points and they scored 8 points. Remember what I said earlier, if they're on the same side, we add those values to get the total points scored. So we can just add these, 21 plus 8. 1 plus 8 is 9. 2 plus nothing is 2. So we really don't need to do any math about who won because we can clearly see that the positive team has 0 points. So 29 minus nothing, well, that gives us 29. So who won? The negative team won because all of these are negatives. They won by 29 points because there were no points scored by the positive team. All right, so there are 6 problems here. You can look at these problems and take a snapshot of them to practice your understanding of this skill. Remember, we circle our terms first, circle the negatives, circle the positives, and then we can put them where they go on the scoreboard. Find your total points. Ask yourself, who won how many points did they win by, and that will tell you your answer. I hope this helped you add and subtract integers. Until next time, happy learning. See you later.